Thanks a lot. I suppose I'd better stand up and do this standing up. I've been standing up all day. I've flown in from Kalgoorlie just a few minutes ago.
Well, sit down.
That's why I'm sort of wearing this. I went to the race round up there. My electorate basically covers all the mining and pastoral region, which by its very nature is mining. And I started off in the mining industry with BHP in the early 80s and finished up with BHP in 94. What's interesting is that I remember at BHP saying we'd never get above 40 million tonnes per annum of iron ore exported. It was considered impossible. BHP's current target is for 480 million tonnes of iron ore per annum, and they're building a new berth system to take 8 Panamax ships offshore. Announced today, Rio are going to do exactly the same thing. They're aiming, I think it was for a total export of 333 million tonnes per annum. So just bringing those two together, by 2015 we're possibly looking at around about 800 million tonnes of iron ore going out of the ports of the Pilbara. Now I refer back to the last time we had a boom, and that was in 2006. Now, there was a lot of talk about how big we were going to get, and bear in mind that I've just said what we're going to be at by 2015. They suggested in 2006 that by 2025 we might be able to reach approximately, what was the figure, 80 million tonnes. So we're aiming now by 2015 to achieve what they predicted we'd get to in 2025. So what's this done to the region? And what's the benefit to the state? Well, first off, state agreement acts that these companies run under prescribe a royalty. Now we can see that Colin Barnett today announced that he was trying to get a greater royalty out of these companies. Now the problem is that because they're a state agreement act, it requires both parties to agree. You can't do it unilaterally. The government has no power over those industries because it is a commercial agreement between the state and the companies. So he's going to have to fight long and hard if they're going to expand to try and get extra royalties out of them. What's happening to those royalties? Very few people actually understand the grants commission process that operates at a federal level. For every $1 billion that we earn in royalties in this state, the federal government, through fiscal adjustment, get to distribute about 70% of that across the other states. And how it works is that each state is given funds by the federal government to make sure that the lifestyle of all the individuals across Australia get the same net benefit. But when it comes to Queensland and Western Australia, because we have our own income stream, i.e. royalties, those royalties are discounted from what we receive from the federal government. So in essence you could say that the 70% that we don't get in Western Australia is amortised over the rest of the states. So there's always been an argument that we should keep more, but because it belongs to Australia, in my view, and not just WA, I think that the process is roughly right. That's where I tend to support a mining tax being operated out of the federal government, which actually then starts eating in to those incredible profits that these corporations make. What it's doing to the Pilbara, because of the expansion, and mainly the expansion not in the industry as production, but in the expansion of industry as an expanding industry, has created a massive need for the extra workers up there. Now, you'd think that would have some effect on Western Australia. It would mean that our population was going through the roof. Well, it ain't. Our population hit a peak in expansion of about 5% in 2008-2009, But the projections are that by 2014-15, our expansion rate will be down to around about just over 2%, roughly what it is now. So where are all these workers coming from? A vast majority are actually coming out of the eastern states. We now have fly-in, fly-out of the eastern states. And it's about 50% of our workforce is now coming out of the other states into Western Australia. So where do we house all these people that are coming in? Well, if you want to rent a house in Karratha, you can get a rental somewhere between around about 2,000 and 3,600 a week for a house. So all the people who lived in Karratha now live in Perth because they can rent their houses out and retire basically in Perth on the interest from their properties in the Pilbara. So there are virtually no residential people left, especially in Karratha. There are in Headland, but Headland's starting to go that way. So what's then happening is that royalties to regions, or the government, is putting on significant more money to build more housing. The problem is that there isn't enough water for the housing, so they build the houses and they can't lease them out because they can't get licenses from the Water Authority to provide water for the housing. I hope I'm not frightening everybody, but this is the mess that is the Northwest. And it's the mess that I hope the gentleman who's sitting next to me is going to try and solve in a minute.
No problem.
But what I'm trying to do is to paint a picture of an absolutely dysfunctional society up there. We've got McDonald workers in Karratha, a fly-in, fly-out.
Oh, you're kidding.
And they fly in, fly out and live in seatainers in the Karratha industrial estate.
Oh.
If you want to get a plumber in Karratha, you phone up Perth. And you pay for him to fly to Karratha, do his job, and then fly home. NGO sector. If you've got a mental illness, you cannot get anybody to help you because that section of the health services cannot afford to rent a house in Karratha to provide the house for those services. Now I have had one little win. I want to tell you about a win. BHP many years ago, when there was a bit of a downturn, had some extra houses. So they turned around to the not-for-profit sector and said, oh, well, look, you know, we've got about 20 houses, you can have them on a temporary lease for your language centre people, your drug and alcohol people, all the various services that that upper echelon of NGOs provide. Well, when the upturn came, BHP wanted their houses back. And so we made quite a bit of a stink about it. I spoke to Ian Fletcher of BHP, Marius Botters, a whole range of people saying, look, you have a social responsibility. And as of about 2 weeks ago, BHP committed to handing over 22 old properties to the Department of Housing